Okay, so we are done with the different type of organ system present in the cockroach, and now we'll be starting with the earthworm and the frog. Before starting the earthworm, I would like to clear with you people that according to the CBSE syllabus, you will be asked regarding only the cockroach. Earthworm and the frog, the anatomy and the morphology of the earthworm and the frog is not a part of your CBSE syllabus. Neither it is a part of CBSE syllabus, nor it is a part of a NEET syllabus. So you may not be requiring to do it in that manner for the preparation of NEET particularly, but still it is given the NCERT, and hence it becomes important for us to go through it, because at any point of time the syllabus might get changed and syllabus might get basically revised, and it may happen that the questions may be asked in this particular from this particular topics as well. So we should be clear with the things which are basically given in NCERT. So we are starting the earthworm, and then we'll be doing with the frog. Okay, so the earthworm, the common species which are found in India are the Pheretima and the Limbricus. These are two different species we have found commonly in India, and we all know earthworms are considered to be the friends of the farmers, because when they are present in the soil, they will be digesting the different organic material present in the soil, and hence converting them in the simple substance which is utilized by the plants as a fertilizer. It is added as a fertilizer in the plants. So even they are used for the formation of vermicompost, okay, which is one of the most nutritious manure which is given to the plants, crops. Okay, and when we see the earthworm, normally the earthworm found are the terrestrial found in the soil. We cannot find them in the water and other places. So they are terrestrial invertebrate. They do not contain the vertebrate column, and they comes under the phylum. They comes under the Annelida. Okay, and they mostly inhabits the upper layer of the moist soil. You will be finding them in the moist soil. Now whenever they are moving, whenever they are eating the food, okay, and they will be basically releasing the fecal matter. So this fecal matter of earthworm is called the worm castings. These are called the worm castings, and these are the one which is so nutritive for the soil. Okay, so this was about the introduction about the earthworm. Next, let us start with the morphology of earthworm. Morphology, the external features and the characteristics of the earthworm. So when we see the body of earthworm, it is basically divided into segments. So you can see over here, this whole body has got different segments, So you can see these are the segments. Okay, so every earthworm body is basically divided into 100 to 120 segments are present, and each segment can also be called a septum as well. These segments can also be called as septums as well. Okay, and these are also called as metamers. What we can call them as metamers. So these segments or metamers are present in this body of Annelida or the earthworm. Okay, and this phenomena is called as metamerism. Or the having a body structure formed by the segments or septum or metamers is called as metamerism, which is found in the Annelida particularly. So in one body, normally it goes as 200 to 120 different segments are formed in one organism, right? Again, there are two surfaces, dorsal surfaces and ventral, but here we won't be able to exactly differentiate with dorsal and ventral. We will be able to differentiate, but it will not be so much distinguishable as we were observing in the cockroach. Okay, but still the dorsal surface will be consisting of the dark median mid dorsal line along the longitudinal axis of the body. So here we can see, when you see it from the dorsal part, you will be observing a medial line, the line which will be longitudinally moving across this whole body. Okay, which will be present on the dorsal part. And the ventral surface can be observed, can be distinguished with that because of presence of this aperture, that is genital aperture. Right over here we can see over here. These are the apertures which are observed. This is the ventral surface, and this is the dorsal surface, right? So this is how we can differentiate between the dorsal and the ventral surface particularly. Now genital aperture, genital openings from which the gametes will be released out. Okay, the anterior end of the earthworm consists the prostomium. Here we can see this is the anterior part of the earthworm. Okay, and this is the lateral view, this is the front view. We can see this is the anterior part of the earthworm, and just before this, at the tip of this earthworm, they will be having a wedge-like structure. This wedge-like structure is called as prostomium. It is called as prostomium. Prostomium. What does it mean? It is a wedge-like structure which is responsible for protection of mouth. First of all, it is responsible for protection of mouth, and the other important function of this prostomium is that whenever the earthworm is basically moving, it is moving in the soil, and it has to remove out the soil from its path. Okay, it has to basically dig it out. So it is responsible for making way for the earthworm by removing out the soil from the path, or we can say it is responsible for digging up the soil. Okay, so this is the prostomium. It's important, prostomium, right? Do not get confused between the prostomium and the peristomium. Both are different things. Prostomium is it's a anterior most part of a earthworm which is covering the mouth. Okay, and peristomium is something different. We will be discussing now. The first body segment, the peristomium is the first body segment of the earthworm. Stomium means mouth, okay, opening, and the prostomium means the opening, the covering which is present above the opening. Okay, and the peristomium means the structure which is present peripheral to this opening or the mouth. Okay, that is the peristomium. So the first segment will be called as peristomium. Okay, then later on the different segment will start over here. Okay, now in a mature worm, segment 14 to 16 are covered by a prominent dark band of glandular tissues called the clitellum. Now this is the clitellum. Here you can see around 14 to 16th segment will be having a specifically formed dark colored segments which are called as clitellum. Here in the dorsal view we can see again this 14 to 16th segments are basically darkly bent, and we can differentiate it from the whole body. This is called as clitellum, and depending on this clitellum, or we can say clitellum also, depending on this position of this clitellum, the whole body can be divided into three parts. The one which is present anterior to this clitellum, is called as preclitellar, and the one which is having the clitellum is called as clitellar, and the one which is behind this clitellum or after the clitellum is called as postclitellar, right? So the body can be divided into three parts on the basis of the position. So, and we can differentiate on the basis of the clitellum as well. Like the part which is before this clitellum is called as preclitellar, and the part which is having the clitellar is called clitellar, and the one which is after this clitellum is called as postclitellar segments. Okay, so that was about the external structures. Next, the four pairs of spermatical apertures and a pair of male genital pores are situated on 5th and 9th segments respectively. Now we have to understand over here there are two terms reused over here. First one is spermatical apertures. So what does it mean? Spermatical apertures means the openings in which the sperms will be stored. It's a sac-like structure which will be having an opening, that is apertures, where spermatheca is a sac-like structure. Spermatheca is a sac-like structure where the eggs will be stored, and this opening is called as spermatical aperture, right? And this is something which is a part of females, we can say, right? And at the same time, these spermatical apertures are found. These are 4 in pairs, which are found in 5th to 9th segments. Here we can see 5th to 9th segments, spermatical apertures. You will be able to see in the next diagram, which will be for reproductive system. Okay, we will observe there as well. So from 5th to 9th segments, we can find the spermatical apertures and a female genital pore. Yani the opening of the female reproductive part will be found at the ventral part again on the 14th segment. So over here, this is the female genital pore. Okay, and below this we have also got the male genital pore. So we can understand it consists both the female reproductive parts and the male reproductive parts. Both are present at the same organism, and hence this type of organisms are called as hermaphrodite. You may write it down. The organism which contains both, that is male reproductive part and the female reproductive part, or we can say when the male and female reproductive parts are present on the same organism, then such type of organisms are called as hermaphrodite, or we can call them as monoecious, right? So here we can see it will be consisting spermatical apertures and the female genital pore as well. And numerous minute pores called nephridophores. Nephridophores are the ones which are involved in excretion. So in the surface we will be observing small pores along the body, which is called as nephridophores. These are associated with the excretion we will be dealing further. Okay, except the first, last, and clitellum. Just except first, this is the first segment, then clitellum segment, and the last segment. Apart from this, all other segments will be having a specifically S-shaped structure, S-shaped setae. Setae means these are the parts. Here you can see the S-shaped setae, right? The structure which is responsible for movement. This is responsible, which is basically having a portion which is having a curves, which will be responsible for movement by contracting and relaxation. Okay, so the setae will be responsible for its movement because it does not have any locomotory organs like legs or something like that. So they are moving by crawling. Okay, and this is basically taken care. This is done by the relaxation and contraction of the body, like a spring. So this will be taken care by the setae, and these setae are present all of the segments except the first segment, the clitellum, and the last segment. Okay, so apart from these segments, all other segments will be consisting this setae as shaped structure. Okay, and it helps in the locomotion. Now let us start with the anatomy. Let us start with the anatomy of the earthworm. In the anatomy, we will be discussing the digestive system of earthworm. First of all, we will be discussing the digestive system of earthworm. Okay, so here the earthworm is covered externally by a thin non-cellular cuticle layer, right? So here the layer which is present, we can, when if you would have observed earthworm, so it is so slimy in nature. It will so slimy and sticky in nature. So you will be observing some fluid present on its surface. We will be observing some fluid present on its surface, and this fluid is secreted by the glands or is secreted by the cells which are present on the epithelial cells. So we can say they are produced by the epithelial cells which are present on the surface of the earthworm. Okay, so these are non-cellular cuticle. Below which the epidermis is present. Two muscles layers, that is two muscle layers, circular and longitudinal. So here we can again say this setae are basically responsible for its movement, are nothing but are formed by the specific muscles, okay, which are circular in nature. The two type of muscles are formed, that is circular and longitudinal, which are responsible for the movement. Okay. Okay. And next is epidermis. It's a single layer of columnar epithelium which is responsible for secreting some specific substances, which is maybe the mucus or something like that, which is responsible for the cuticle nature of the surface. Okay. And now the alimentary canal. Alimentary canal starts from the mouth. It starts from the mouth. That is the first segment itself. So it will be start from the mouth to the last segment of the body. So it will be starting from the very first segment to the last segment. The first segment will be consisting the mouth, while the last segment will be consisting the anus. Okay. So right from beginning, it will be mouth, which will be basically opening into the buccal cavity. And this buccal cavity will be basically up to this buccal cavity. It will be having 1 to 3 segments will be consisting the buccal cavity, and then the pharynx. And pharynx will be very short tubular structure, which is the junction between the segment that is buccal cavity and the esophagus. Now this esophagus will be extended up to 5 to 7 segments. Esophagus will be extended up to the 5 to 7 segments, and after that a specific structure called as gizzard. Gizzard will be found. This gizzard will be again will be present at the 8th to 9th segment. Gizzard will present at from 8th to 9th segment. Okay, so here we can see the first segment, then the pharynx or buccal cavity, pharynx, esophagus, then the gizzard. Now the gizzard will be having the same function, responsible for the digestion or grinding of the substances. Okay. Now after the gizzard, we will be having stomach, which will be up to 9 to 14 segment. Up to 9 to 14 segment will be the stomach. Okay. And then the intestine, which will be starting from 15 to last. So how the segment can be divided? The first buccal cavity. First with the mouth. After mouth, it will be buccal cavity, which will be up to the first to third segment. Then the pharynx, that is a very transition period, the junction between the pharynx, buccal cavity and esophagus. Then esophagus will be extended from 5 to 7 segment, and then gizzard up to 8 to 9 segment. Gizzard is the one where the grinding of the food will take place, and then the stomach, which will be consisting of 9 to 14 segment, and from 15th to last segment it will be consisting the intestine, and the last segment will be consisting the anus. Okay, in this whole anatomy, or in this alimentary canal, there will be a specific type of structure called as typhlosole. The specific structure called as typhlosole. These are nothing but the inner folding of the dorsal wall, the intestinal wall particularly. What would they do? They will be getting folded. They will be getting folded in such a manner that their absorption increases, that the rate of absorption increases, or we can say the surface area, effective surface area for the absorption increases, and it will be functioning like villi. It will be functioning like villi. So these typhlosoles are mainly found in this earthworm intestine layer, where the absorption is increased by increasing the surface area by creating the foldings within the surface layers. Okay, dorsal walls. Okay. Alimentary canal opens up to the exterior by a small rounded aperture called anus. So it will be starting from the mouth and will be ending to the anus. So let us revise it again. So it will be starting with the first segment, that is mouth, then first to 3 segment, there is buccal cavity, then pharynx, and then esophagus, 5 to 7 segment, then gizzard, then stomach, and then intestine last. It will be consisting typhlosole, which is nothing but the inner folding of the dorsal wall, responsible for increasing the surface area for absorption, and it will be having the last opening at the last segment, which is called as anus. Okay, and the body will be, this is the alimentary canal. Okay, now the circulatory system. When we say circulatory system, it will be consisting the closed circulatory system. Unlike the cockroach, it will be consisting the closed circulatory system, where the blood will be flowing in some particular blood vessels. Okay, so blood is confined to the heart and blood vessels. So they will be having the blood vessels and the heart. Contractions keep the blood circulating in one direction. So here we can see this is the blood vessels, and the heart, the different chambers of the heart are also seen, like lateral hearts over here. You can see the lateral esophageal hearts. So there are multiple hearts, we can say, and they will be responsible for the movement of this blood in one direction only. They will be responsible for movement of blood in one direction only. And along with this blood vessels and heart, it will be also consisting the blood glands. In the 4th, 5th and 6th segments, they will be consisting the blood glands in the 4th, 5th and 6th segments, which are responsible for the production of blood cells and the hemoglobin. Now the blood over here is also the similar type, like we'll be having the plasma and RBCs and all that. So the blood glands are the one which are present in the 4th, 5th and 6th segment, and responsible for production of blood cells and hemoglobin. Blood cells and the hemoglobin. And so now the blood cells, how they differ from this body cells, like the blood cells over here will be phagocytic in nature. Like in the animals and in the higher animals, the blood cells like WBC are phagocytic. So here as well, the blood cells are phagocytic in nature. It means they are able to carry out engulfment of any foreign particles, or it can carry out even their own particles if it is damaged or needed to be removed out. Okay, so they are phagocytic in nature, and this earthworms do not have any specific type of breathing devices like lungs, or like any type of spiracles or tracheal system is absent. So they would be exchanging the gases directly from the surfaces. So their body will be having pores present on the surface, through which the gases will be exchanged, and the gases will be directly getting diffused within the cells and the blood. Okay, so it will be diffused in the blood, and this blood will be taking this gases to the different parts of the body and will be distributing over there. So it does not have any type of respiratory structures like lungs or trachea or any sort of such structures. Okay, it is absent. So that is about the circulatory system of earthworm. Next is the excretory system. Normally excretory system is basically, excretion is taken care by the nephridia. Nephridia is the one responsible for the excretion. It is of again 3 types. It will be of again 3 types. There is septal nephridia, integumentary nephridia, and pharyngeal nephridia. Septal nephridia suggests that it will be basically present at the septum. Over here you can see they are present at the septum. Okay, so when the side between 2 septum, we can say, right, when the one septum is ending, the septal nephridia will be present. It will be forming a ring-like structure around this whole particular septum, and here this septum will be having this nephridia, which will be responsible for removal of the waste substances outside the body. Okay, so every septum will be having its own. It will be starting from mostly 15. It will be starting from the 15th segment to the last segment. 15th segment to the last segment. Okay, and they will present mainly both the sides. So it's present on both sides of the intersegmental septa. on the segment 15 to the last that open into intestine. Okay. Next one is the integumentary nephridia. Now integumentary nephridia attached to the lining of the body wall of the segment 3 to the last that one open to the body surfaces. So here we can see it is also found on the segment wall, body wall. The lateral walls will be having the spores, integumentary nephridia, and it will be starting right from septum 3rd, segment 3rd to the last one. Okay, so it will be present in almost all the segments. Okay, and the last one is the pharyngeal nephridia. The pharyngeal nephridia will be again found in the tufts. It will be found in the group, or we can say collections, where the three mainly pair of the pharyngeal nephridia are observed, where 4th, 5th, and 6th segments. So here we can see these are the 4th, 5th, and 6th segment. Here the tufts of pharyngeal nephridia is observed. Tuft of pharyngeal nephridia is observed 1, 2, and 3. The 4th, 5th, and 6th segment will be consisting the pharyngeal nephridia. So now we have seen the nephridia will be of three types: septal nephridia, integumentary nephridia, and the pharyngeal nephridia. Okay, and it basically it will be present in almost all the segments except the first, second one, and the last one maybe. Okay, so they will be present in almost all the segments. Okay. Now what does it do? So nephridia regulates the volume and the composition of body fluids. So whenever the volume of the blood increases, it will be releasing out the substances. When it is decreasing, so what will happen? It will retain the water within the body. Okay, and it will also responsible for the removal of the nitrogen waste in the form of excretion. Okay. And how does it collect the fluid from the body? It collects it is a funnel like structure which collect the excess fluid of the coelomic chamber. So whatever the fluid which is excess in nature and which will consisting the nitrogenous waste will be taken up by the nephridia, which is again a funnel like structure, and it will be taken outside through the nephridial pores. Okay, that was about the excretory system in the case of earthworm. Next one is the nervous system. So nervous system is a bit developed one, not that much, but still it will be having the ganglia. Ganglions are nothing but clumps of the neuron, we know that. Okay, so represented by ganglia arranged in segment wise and on ventral pair nerve cord. So each of this segment will be having ganglia. Each of this segment will be having the ganglia. The cerebral ganglia integrate sensory inputs. The one which are present at the anterior part, will be getting the input from the sensory organs. Like sensory organs over here, mainly eyes are absent, but still it can sensitize. It can basically sense the light, sense the presence of light with the help of sensitive receptors, which are photoreceptors. They will be able to perceive the light by the photoreceptors which are present on the body. And along with the photoreceptor, they will be also having some chemoreceptors, which are again responsible for sensing the different chemicals and the taste and the smell of the surrounding, by which it can respond back to the surrounding. Okay, so this senses will be perceived, and this message will be conveyed to the ganglia through the ganglia which are present in the cerebral part, or we can cerebral ganglia, which is present in the anterior part of the body, and located on the anterior part of the worm, which is called as cerebral ganglia. Okay, so nervous system is not very much complicated. Each of the segment will be having the ganglia. The ganglia which is present in the anterior part is called as cerebral ganglia, which will be getting the input from the sense organs, and the sense organs are mainly the chemoreceptors and the photoreceptors, responsible for sensing the light sensitivity, and the taste receptors, which may be the form of smell or pH or any other forms, right? Next one is the reproductive system. It's important, and we should be discussing that. So reproductive system, it is like earthworm is hermaphrodite. Like it is important. Earthworm is hermaphrodite. It means that the earthworm, a single organism of earthworm, a single body will be consisting both the male and female reproductive structures on the same organism. So both the male and female reproductive structures will be present on the same organism. And such type of organism is called as hermaphrodite. Such type of organism is called as hermaphrodites. Okay. And now, when we see hermaphrodites, so two pair of testes present at the 10th and 11th segments. Here we can get it. So two pair of testes. This is testis sex, which will be consisting the testes, right? So two pair of testes are present here. You can see at this mark. This is the testis. This is the testis. So two pairs are present at the 10th and 11th. At the 10th and 11th segment. Okay, so two testes pair is present at the 10th and 11th segment, and through this testis the vasa deferentia will be running up to the 18th segment. Okay, so here you can see Here you can see from this testis, this vasa differentia. This is a tubular structure. This tubular structure you can see, right? This is a vasa differentia which is extending up to the 18th segment, where it is meeting this prostate gland, Okay, so two pairs of accessory glands, vasa differentia, run up to the 18th segment where it is joining the prostatic duct. This is my prostatic duct. This is the prostatic duct. Okay, so it will be getting fused with the prostatic gland and then it will be going to the prostatic duct. Okay, now the two pair of accessory glands are present, one pair in each 17th and 19th segment. So here we can as well see these are the accessory segments, 17th and 19th. These are the accessory glands. Along with this testes, these are the accessory reproductive glands responsible for the secretions of sperms and all that. So they are also present where 17th and 19th segments. So the testis present in the 10th and 11th will be arising the vasa differentia, which will be extending up to the 18th segment, and the 18th segment they will be fusing with the prostate duct, and this will be basically forming a common prostatic and spermatic duct later on. Okay, now the common prostatic and spermatic duct, this vasa differentia, opens to the exterior by a pair of male genital pores on the ventral lateral side of the 18th segment. So here we can see this is the common prostatic and spermatic duct which is formed over here. From here a specific tubular structure will be rising. This is the one which is we can see, which is common prostatic and spermatic duct, through which is common prostatic and spermatic duct, and it will be arising up to the 18th segment. It will be arising to the 18th segment, and it will be responsible for releasing the sperms. It will be responsible for releasing the pores. So we can say it is a genital pore. The opening will be called a genital pore. So the common prostatic and spermatic duct opens to the exterior by the pair of male genital pores on the ventrolateral side of the 18th segment. 4 pairs of spermatheca are located in 6 to 9 segments. So this was all about the male structures. Now here you can see the spermatheca. Spermatheca are the one which are responsible. These are the pouch-like structure where the sperms will be stored. So these are present in the 4 pairs are present, like from 6th to 9th. The 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. All this segment will be consisting a pair of spermatheca where the sperms will be stored. Okay, so this was about the spermatheca. Now let us see the ovary. So one pair of ovaries is attached at the intersegmental septum of the 12th and 13th segment. So here you can see the 12th segment. This is the 12th segment, and here this is the 13th segment. So in between these two segments there is junction. It is intersegmental junction, we can say, where these ovaries are produced. The yellow structure is called as ovaries. So these ovaries are produced at the they are placed at the junction between the 12th and 13th segment. Okay, now this ovary will be forming a oviduct again. So the ovarian funnels, or we can say beneath the ovaries, which continue into the oviduct. So here ovarian funnels will be exactly seen over here, where so this below this ovary will be arising the ovarian funnel, which will be then converting into the oviduct, where the ovum will be transferred, where the ovum will be moving. Okay, after the ovulation, open of the ventral side as a single maiden female genital pore on the 14th segment, and this oviduct will be opening at the sidewards at the ventral sides of the 14th segment. Will be opening at the 14th segment. So that was about the female and male reproductive structure. Let us discuss once again. Let us start with the testis. So testis will be present in the 10th and 11th segment. Okay, so 2 pair of testes will be present, and from this testis the vasa differentia will be arising, which will be going up to this prostatic duct and prostatic gland, and this prostatic gland, from where it will be fusing with the prostatic duct and will be forming a common duct, that is the common prostatic and spermatic duct, which will now release their sperms to the outside by genital pores, which is opening at the 18th segment. Along with that, the accessory reproductive glands are also present, which are present in the 17th. The pair of accessory glands are there. They are present in the 17th segment and the 19th segment. Okay, and apart from the spermathecae, the 4 pair of spermatheca are present in the segments 6th to 9th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. So 4 pairs are present, which are responsible for storage of the sperms. Okay, now the female reproductive structures will be consisting of ovary. So a pair of ovary is present at the 10th at the interjunction between the 12th and 13th segment. Through this ovary, the ovarian funnel will be arising, which will be basically fusing with the oviduct, and this oviduct will be releasing its its secretion outside the body, so from the pore which is at the 14th segment, okay. So that is about the male and female reproductive system. So we come to know that the earthworm is basically a hermaphrodite in nature, and it means one organism will be consisting both the male and female reproductive structures. Now how the fertilization will be taking place, how the mating will occur. So a mutual exchange of sperm occurs between two worms. So it requires two organisms which will be exchanging the sperms with each other. Now one thing has to be keep in mind. So the maturity of male reproductive structure will be occurring fast. The sperm will be produced first and then the ovum will be produced. So there is a difference between the timing of the production maturity. So the same organism will not be able to fertilize the egg of the same organism, right? So the sperms of earthworm will not be fertilizing its own egg cell. Why? Because when the sperms are produced, the egg cells are not produced, or if they are produced, they are not mature. So these egg cells, the sperms which is produced, has to be transferred to the other earthworm, where both the earthworms will be exchanging their sperms. Keep it in mind, both the earthworms will be exchanging their sperms in such a manner, and they will be storing these sperms in the spermatheca cells, spermatheca pouches we have already seen, right? And then when the ovary gets matured or the ovum gets released, then these sperms will be getting fused with the ovum, carrying out the fertilization. Okay, so here both the earthworm has to come in contact, and they will be carrying out the mating by posing themselves in such a manner that both the earthworms will be able to release their own sperms in the spermatheca cells. Okay, and that position is called as juxtaposing, opposite gonadal openings. Like both will be positioning themselves in a juxta manner, where they will be forming opposite the gonadal openings, right? Mature sperm and egg cells and nutritive fluids are deposited in cocoons. Now these egg cells, when are released and the sperm cells are released, this will be deposited in the cocoons, which are produced by the glands of clitellum. The clitellum will be responsible for production of the nutritive substances, which will be produced in the cocoons, and these cocoons will be consisting the egg cells and sperm cells, and fertilization will be taking place inside the cocoons. You have to keep in mind, the fertilization of the egg cells and the sperm cells will be taking place inside the cocoon, and these cocoons will be deposited in the soil, where they will be getting the nutrition and they will be developing into the new organism. And once the cocoon is matured, it will be developing into the new earthworm. Okay, the ova are fertilized by the sperms within the cocoon itself, deposited in the other soil, on the soil. The cocoon holds the worm embryos. About after 3 to 4 weeks, mostly 3 weeks, each cocoon produces 2 to 20 baby worms with an average of 4. Okay, and development of earthworm is direct. It does not involve any larval stage. Okay, so it is a direct involvement, and the fertilization will be taking place in the cocoons, and it will be responsible for the development of the organism outside the body. So it is a direct development, but fertilization is also inside the cocoon, not actually inside the body. Okay, so that was about the reproduction in the case of earthworm. So we have seen the different organ system, right from a digestive system, then the circulatory system, then the excretory system of earthworm, nervous system of earthworm, reproductive system, male and female structures, and the fertilization of the eggs and the sperms. Okay, so now we will be starting the morphology and anatomy of frog. Okay, this will be the last topic of this chapter. Okay, so I hope you people are understanding things, and if you have got any doubt, you can always approach. Okay, so let us start the morphology and anatomy of frog. So the frog comes in the class Amphibia. We know that what does it mean? It means that it will be able to survive in both the inside the water and outside the water as well. So there's a difference between amphibia and reptile as well. There are some reptiles like crocodile will be also amphibian in nature, we can say, which is able to survive inside the water and outside the water, but still it is not called as amphibians. Why? Because the amphibians are those type of organism which can survive in both the condition on the land and the water, but they will be laying their eggs in water, water. Crocodile, we would have seen, they do not lay their eggs in water. They lay their eggs in the on the shore or on the land particularly, right? So you have to keep this thing in mind. It's class Amphibia and phylum Chordata. The most common species which are found in India is the Rana tigrina. Rana tigrina. ठीक है? And these are poikilotherms, which means they are not able to regulate their own temperature according to surroundings. So they are not able to regulate their own temperature, body temperature according to surrounding, like the humans. Okay, so they are not able to regulate the temperature. Like if the body temperature, the surrounding is high, then the body temperature will also go high. So they are not able to regulate their own temperature, and so because of this, they will have to undergo different type of adaptation. They will be undergoing different type of processes to regulate themselves. Okay, so they mainly go for estivation, that is the summer sleep. It is also called a summer sleep. So they will be going in inactive phase during the summer period and dry period, when the water is not there, moisture is not there, so temperature is high. So what will they do? They will get buried themselves under the water, under the soil, and will be going for the inactivation for longer duration. That is called estivation, or we can say summer sleep. Another thing is hibernation, which is basically the winter sleep, when the organism is not able to go for the searching the food, or is not able to get the food nutrition from the outside due to the very low temperature. They will undergo the hibernation, where they will be basically getting inactivated for longer duration. Okay, it is also able to camouflage. Camouflage is again a phenomena where the organism will be changing its color according to the background. Okay, whenever it finds anything in danger, so what will happen? It will change its colors to deceive the predator. Okay, so frogs will be having the ability to camouflage. Okay, now let us see the morphology of frog. So the morphology is the outermost skin. The skin is glandular and absorbs water. It absorbs water and is glandular. It secretes some mucus-like structure, due to which the skin of the frog will be mostly moist and smooth and slippery. Okay, because of glandular secretions. It secretes mucus and maintains a moist condition. Dorsal side of the frog is normally olive green in color, most probably olive green color, and sometimes brownish also. And the ventral side is uniformly pale yellow, so it would not be showing any type of different colors. So it will be mostly yellow colored. Okay. And body is divided into head and trunk. The two parts are the head and trunk, not segmented, neither septum nor like thorax region. It will not have a lot of segments. It will be having head and trunk. The body of frogs has pair nostrils. It will be having nostril, bulge eyes covered by the nictitating membrane. Now the eyes will be having the nictitating membrane. Nictitating membrane are a specific type of membrane which are impermeable to water, and will be preventing the will be protecting the eyes of the organisms which are found under the water. So this membrane will be not allowing the water to get inside the eyes. Particularly nictitating membrane are mainly found in the organisms which are found in the water. Okay, so they having the nictitating membrane. Membranous tympanum. You will not be able to see an ear. You will not be able to see the ear in the frogs. So but instead of ear, they will be having a hole and a eardrum. We can say it will be having a membranous structure which is called as membranous tympanum. So it will be functioning as the ear, which will be perceiving the all the stimulus, all the sound. Okay. Now the forelimbs and hind limbs, two type of limbs will be there. The forelimbs, two forelimbs will be there, and two hind limbs will be there, in which the hind limbs, the limbs which are present towards the posterior end, will be more strength, will be more strong, and will be comparatively more longer as well. And they are the one which is responsible for making the jump, and hence they are able to jump for a long distance as well. Okay, so the hind limbs are the one which are more important. The frogs exhibit sexual dimorphism. It means they will be having two different type of the male and female structures will be different on different organisms, and they will be showing some differences as well. You will be able to identify whether the one is the male or female. What sort of difference we can see? The males will be consisting the vocal sacs. The male will be consisting the vocal sac. They will be able to make the voices, okay, to attract the females particularly, and they will be also having a sac-like structure present at this neck region. Okay, so and the copulatory pad. Copulatory pad is a specific extra structure which is found in the one of the forelimbs in the males. So here this is the forelimb, and this forelimb will be having one more finger-like projection or appendages, which will be responsible for protecting, holding the female properly while copulating, right? So this is, and hence it is called as copulation pad. It's called as copulation pad. So it is helping them to copulate, right? So it is called as copulation pad. This is the hind limb, this is the forelimb, this is the eye which will having nictitating membrane, this is the hand, and this is the trunk. It will be glandular structure. Okay, now This frog will be exhibiting, it will be also having the web structures. We will see later on. Next is the anatomy. I think it is not there. Okay. So anatomy, let us start with the digestive system. So the digestive system will be consisting, right from beginning, it will be having the mouth. The food will be taken up by the bilobed sticky tongue. So you will be observing that the frogs do not eat directly. They will be basically eating the substances by licking with the help of tongue. Okay, so they will be having a tongue which will be sticky in nature, and that will be taking inside the food, and this is bilobed tongue. Okay, and the mouth or cavity will be called buccal cavity, which will lead to the esophagus, to the pharynx. Okay, through the pharynx. Now the esophagus will be then continuing to the stomach, and stomach will be having the different type of juices, the digestive enzymes, and it will be getting digested thoroughly within the intestines. Okay, and lastly it will be removed out through the cloaca. Now the cloaca is that part where all this opening, that is genital opening and the excretory opening and this alimentary canal opening are present, and that is called as cloaca. Okay, liver secretes bile. Bile is responsible for emulsification of the fats. So fats are basically digested with the help of the bile juices, which is secreted by the liver. And the pancreas also secretes the pancreatic juice containing the digestive enzyme responsible for digestion of proteins, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids and lipids, and etc. So the main digestion will be taking place in the intestine region. Food is captured by bilobed legs, just I told you. The gastric juices will be present in the stomach, and will be also having the HCl. So HCl and along with the HCl there will be some digestive enzymes will be present in the stomach, which will be responsible for starting the digestion. Although not all the digestion will take place in the stomach, but it will get started. Duodenum, which receives the bile for felt emulsification and pancreatic. So duodenum is that part of it's the starting of the intestine, where it will be receiving the chyme from the stomach. It will be receiving the chyme from the stomach. It will be also receiving the bile juice from the gallbladder, or we can say the liver, and it will be also receiving the pancreatic juice containing different type of enzyme from the pancreas. And the fat will be getting emulsified, and other nutritive substances like the fat, proteins, carbohydrates will be getting digested with the help of pancreatic juice. And the final digestion takes place in the intestine, which is later the digested food substances or the nutrients are absorbed by the villi or microvilli. The villi and microvilli are a type of tissues or type of epithelial cells which will be having extended surfaces, which will be responsible for effective absorption of the nutrient substances, right? So it will increase the surface area and hence will be responsible for absorption of nutrient substances. So here you can see the esophagus, and then this esophagus is opening into stomach, and this stomach will be basically intestine and rectum and anus, and this is the cloacal apparatus. The cloacal apparatus will be getting the opening from here, rectum as well. It will be also getting the opening from the ureter, and it will be also getting the opening from the we can say reproductive structures as well. So this is the one which is the one opening of the single opening will be responsible for functioning, excretion as well, and digested food will be also removed. Undigested food will be also removed, and it will also respond for movement of the release of the gametes as well. Okay. Now respiration in the case of frogs can take place both through the skin, lungs, and the buccal cavity. So when the organism is within the soil, within the water, it will be utilizing the skin to absorb the moisture, to absorb the oxygen dissolved in the water, and on the land it will be utilizing the nostrils to exchange the gases present in the surrounding. And during the tadpole stage, when the frog is not developed, it is still in immature stage, it will be carrying out the exchange with the help of gills. It will be carrying out the exchange with the help of gills. So during the different phases of life, the frog will be showing different type of exchange structures. During the tadpole stage, it will be having the gills. Later on, it will be having the skin and nostrils. Skin is used for during the underwater exchange the dissolved oxygen which is present within the water. Okay, and when it is on the land, it will be utilizing nostrils. The blood vessel system involves heart, blood vessels, and even the lymphatic system. So the circulatory system consists of the heart. Heart will be 3-chambered over here. So this is something which you have to take care. The heart will be 3-chambered, containing 2 atria and 1 ventricle. 2 atria and 1 ventricle. And this heart is covered by a pericardium. It's a specific type of structure which is responsible for covering the cardiac tissue, that is the heart, which is called the pericardium. Okay, so the vascular system involves the blood vessels and the heart, and along with that it will be also having the lymphatic system, which consists again the lymph channels and lymph nodes, which you will be studying in detail in upcoming lectures, just upcoming chapters. Okay, so heart consists 3 chambers. It's an important question. The question may get asked away from this particular topic. Okay, now hepatic portal system, it will be consisting of special type of venous connections between the liver and the intestine, and this connection is called as hepatic portal system. So you have to again mention it. Hepatic portal system is the connection between the it's a special connection between the liver and intestine, where the things will be transferred among these 2 organs. Similarly, there is also a venous connection system between the kidney and the lower parts of the body, which is called renal portal system, okay, which are also responsible for transfer of substances among these organs. Okay, and the blood is composed of plasma, which is again consisting mostly of the fluid, nucleated RBC. Okay, in the case of higher mammals, what happens? The RBC is non-nucleated. It is without any nucleus. Okay, over here it is nucleated RBC. This is something which you have to mention. And WBC are responsible for providing immunity, and they are of different types, and the leukocytes and platelets. Okay, now excretory system consists pair of kidneys. It will be having the kidneys, ureters, cloaca. Cloaca is also, again I have told you, it is the structure which will be getting the openings of the excretory system as well, reproductive system and the digestive system. All these 3 openings will be opening in a single pouch, which is called as cloaca. Each kidney is composed of several structures and functional units called as uriniferous tubules or nephrons. Okay, and these nephrons are responsible for filtering the urine and absorption of the water from it. And the frog excretes urea, and thus it is called a ureotelic animal. It's important. The frog will be a ureotelic animal. The cockroach was uricotelic, but it is ureotelic, right? Why? Because it will be excreting the urea as a nitrogen waste. Nervous system. This is the first organism which we have discussed right up till now, like the cockroach and the earthworm. So when we compare with them, the nervous system present in frog is highly sophisticated and advanced type of nervous system, which will be consisting not only the neural system, but along with the neural system there will be also endocrine system consisting the hormones and the glandular system, which is also assisting the control and coordination of the organism. So neural system will be consisting 3 parts, particularly the CNS, that is consisting a properly developed brain and spinal cord, the central nervous system, and the PNS, peripheral nervous system, which consists of the nerves fibers which are arising from the brain, which are called as cranial nerves, and the one which are arriving from the spinal are called as spinal nerves. Okay, so peripheral nervous system will be consisting cranial nerves and the spinal nerves, and along with that the autonomic nervous system is also there, which consists 2 types of system, that is sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system will be functioning in opposite to each other, and it will be discussed in the neural control and coordination properly. There are 10 pairs of cranial nerves arising from the brain. The nerves which are arising from the brain are called as cranial nerves, which are again 10 in number, and the brain is enclosed in a bony structure called as brain box. So it is very sophisticated and a complex and advanced level of organization. So we have seen the different levels, right? The brain is divided into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. The forebrain includes the olfactory lobes, the lobes which are responsible for the smell, recognizing the smell, paired cerebral hemisphere and unpaired diencephalon. And these are the structures which are found in the brain. Okay, midbrain is containing a pair of optic lobes, the one which is responsible for visuals, okay, recognizing visuals and making the images. And the hindbrain is consisting cerebellum and the medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata is the one which will be then connected with the spinal cord, okay, and vertebral column, mainly the spinal cord. So it will be connecting between the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. It's basically part of central nervous system. Okay. Now the sensory organs are present in the brain and the frogs are the touch, smell, taste, vision and hearing. All these 5 senses are basically perceived by this frog, and with the help of different type of sensory organs like sensory papillae, taste buds present on the body, like mainly on the tongues, and smell, nasal epithelium, vision, eyes, and hearing is basically tympanum or with the internal ears.
Last one is the reproductive system of the frog. Reproductive system of the frogs. So the frogs are again dioecious in nature. They will be having different organisms having this male reproductive structure and female reproductive structure. So both the male will be having the male and female reproductive structures will be present on separate organism. So they are dioecious in nature. Testes are the two testes which are present paired in nature. The paired testes are present yellowish and ovoid, which are adhered to kidney. Here you can see these testes are basically found nearby to or connected with the kidneys. Okay, adhered to kidneys, which is something different from the normal other organisms, mainly the higher level organisms. Double fold of peritoneum called mesochorium. So these will be having a specific layer of structures which will be protecting them, called as peritoneum layer. Okay. And vasa efferentia enters the kidney on either side and open into bleeder's canal. So this testes will be arising this vasa efferentia, which will be taking these sperms and the secretions from testes to the ejaculatory duct, and this will be again connected to the urinary tract. It will be passing through the bleeder's canal and will be communicating urinary tract that opens into the small median chamber cloaca. Again, the cloaca will be responsible for taking the reproductive gametes or gamete cells as well. Okay. And the female reproductive organs are consisting the pair of ovaries and a pair of oviduct opening into the cloaca separately. So here we can see the female reproductive structures. These are the ovaries. These are the ovaries, and these are the oviduct which will be carrying this ovum into this cloaca. Okay, so this is the whole system, how it will be functioning. It will also present towards the adhering to the kidney. So the pair of ovaries with a pair of oviduct opening into cloaca separately. Fertilization is external, like the sperms will be released on the eggs will be released on the water, and the sperms will be also released in water in very high amounts, so that the maximum number of organisms can be developed, and the loss of the sperms can be compensated, because there will be millions of sperms will be released to fertilize very few ovums, okay, to compensate the loss of during the fertilization. So fertilization will be totally external, and developmental involves the larval stage, which is called as tadpole. And hence this type of formation of this type of formation of an adult, development of an adult, is called as metamorphosis. Okay, so this frog will be showing the metamorphosis. So undergo metamorphosis to form as an adult. So the young one frog, which is called as tadpole, will be looking different, will be having different characteristics and different organs as well. And when it gets developed into adult, it will be getting differentiated, it will change the structure, and this process is called as metamorphosis, which is found in the frogs. Okay, so that was about the reproductive structures of the frogs, and so this was all what we have done today. What we have done was a tissue. First of all, what are tissues? Different type of tissues. We have seen the fundamental 4 tissues, that is connective tissues, epithelial tissues, muscular tissues, and the nervous tissue. Then we have studied the different types, their location, their function, and all that about the tissues. Then we started the morphology and anatomy of the cockroach, earthworm, and frog. So I hope you would have understood things properly. If you are not able to understand, you may repeat the things, because just attending the lecture for once will not be able to clear your whole topic properly. So you may need to revise it again and again. So I will suggest you to revise it as much as possible, so that you can get the things properly, and read the textbook along with it, and try to solve the questions. We may give you questions as well after this lecture, but you should try to attempt as much as question possible, and do best in this chapter. Bye, and have a nice day.